The cafeteria of Station Nexus buzzed with the usual mix of alien languages and universal translators working overtime. Maya Chen sat alone at a corner table picking at her protein paste while trying to ignore the snickers coming from 3 tables away. "Look at the little human," chittered Vextar, a mantis-like Crixian whose compound eyes glittered with malice. "Still eating that disgusting earth food instead of proper nutrition cubes." His companions laughed, a sound like grinding metal from the cybernetic Zalari and a wet gurgling from the slug-like Morthan. Maya kept her eyes down, but her grip tightened slightly on her utensil. "I heard humans only live 80 cycles," added the Zalari, its voice modulated through artificial vocal cords. "What a waste of resources, training something so short-lived for the Academy." Maya finished her meal in silence and stood to leave. As she passed their table, Vexitar extended one of his razor-sharp forelimbs, causing her to stumble. The cafeteria erupted in alien laughter. "Careful, little human," Vextar said, his mandibles clicking with amusement. "Wouldn't want you to break those fragile bones." Maya steadied herself and continued walking, her face burning with embarrassment. Behind her, she heard more whispers and cruel comments about her species, the same thing she'd been hearing for months since arriving at the Galactic Academy. The Academy was the most prestigious military training institution in known space, accepting only the best from each species. Maya had scored impossibly high on the entrance exams, so high that several species had demanded a retest, convinced a human couldn't possibly achieve such results legitimately. She made her way through the gleaming corridors to her dormitory, a small single room that felt more like a prison cell. The walls were bare except for a small hollow frame showing Earth's blue marble hanging in space. Maya touched the frame gently, her fingers tracing the familiar continents. A soft chime announced an incoming message. Maya's heart sank when she saw it was from her advisor, Admiral Thorne, a stern Altarian with skin like polished obsidian. "Cadet Chen, report to my office immediately." Maya sighed and made her way to the administrative section. Admiral Thorne's office was intimidating, filled with battle honors and tactical displays from various conflicts across the galaxy. The Admiral looked up as Maya entered, his silver eyes unreadable. "Sit," he commanded, gesturing to a chair that was too large for her human frame. Maya perched on the edge, trying to look attentive, despite feeling like a child called to the principal's office. "There have been complaints," Admiral Thorne began, pulling up a holographic display. "Multiple incidents of you causing disruptions during training exercises." Maya's eyes widened. "Sir, I haven't done anything wrong. I follow all protocols exactly as taught." "That's precisely the problem," the Admiral said, leaning forward. "During the siege simulation, you completed the objective in 14 minutes. The previous record, held by a Vorthon strike team, was 47 minutes. "I found a more efficient approach," Maya said quietly. "In the stealth infiltration exercise, you somehow bypassed 17 layers of security that should have been impossible for any cadet to penetrate. The instructors are still trying to figure out how you did it." Maya remained silent. How could she explain that the security systems were childishly simple compared to what she'd encountered before? That every impossible scenario they presented felt like a basic training drill? "And yesterday," Admiral Thorne continued, "during hand-to-hand combat training, you defeated 3 opponents simultaneously, including a Krogan warrior twice your size, without sustaining a single injury." "I got lucky," Maya mumbled. Admiral Thorne stood and walked to the window overlooking the training grounds. "Cadet Chen, in my 40 years at this academy, I've never seen raw talent like yours. But talent without context raises questions. Your academy application lists you as coming from Earth's agricultural sector with no prior military experience, yet you demonstrate tactical knowledge that would be impressive in a seasoned general." Maya's pulse quickened, but she kept her expression neutral. I've always been good at puzzles and strategy games, sir. Strategy games, the Admiral repeated slowly. Tell me, what did you do before applying to the Academy? I worked on a farm, Maya said, sticking to her cover story. Grew hybrid crops for export. Admiral Thorne turned to face her fully. A farm girl who can outfight seasoned warriors and outsmart military strategists with decades of experience. How interesting. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Maya could feel the Admiral's analytical mind working, trying to piece together the puzzle she represented. Sir, Maya said finally, is there something specific you need from me? If I'm performing too well, I can try to blend in better. That's exactly what worries me, Admiral Thorne said. You're already holding back, aren't you? In every exercise, every test, you complete just enough to excel without completely dominating. You're deliberately concealing your true capabilities. Maya said nothing, which was answer enough. Very well, the Admiral said after a long moment. You're dismissed. But Cadet Chen, be aware that you're being watched. Your performance is anomalous, and anomalies tend to attract unwanted attention. Maya stood and saluted. Yes, sir. As she left the office, Maya's mind raced. She'd been careful, so careful, to appear merely gifted rather than impossibly skilled. But apparently even her restrained performances were raising suspicions. She returned to the cafeteria for dinner, hoping to avoid another confrontation. No such luck. Vextar and his group had apparently been waiting for her. There's the Academy's little pet, Vextar said loudly, drawing attention from nearby tables. I heard you got called to see Admiral Thorne. Finally getting kicked out for cheating? Maya tried to walk past, but the Morthan, whose name was Glub, oozed into her path. Answer when you're spoken to, human. I'm not looking for trouble, Maya said quietly. But trouble found you anyway, Vextar said, standing to his full 7-foot height. His razor-sharp claws gleamed under the artificial lights. See, some of us don't think a primitive little human belongs in the Academy. Maybe it's time someone taught you your place. The cafeteria had gone quiet, other cadets forming a loose circle to watch the confrontation. Maya glanced around, noting exit points and potential weapons, old habits dying hard. I don't want to fight you, Maya said, meaning it. The last thing she needed was more attention. Too bad, Vexatar chittered, lunging forward with a claw strike that would have disemboweled most beings. Maya moved without thinking, a fluid sidestep that sent Vexatar stumbling past her. Glub tried to grab her from behind, but she ducked under his reaching pseudopods and pivoted away. Lucky reflexes, the Zalari observed, circling around to cut off her escape route. Let's see how long they last. All 3 aliens attacked simultaneously, a coordinated assault that should have overwhelmed any single opponent. Maya found herself moving in patterns she'd trained herself to forget, her body remembering lessons learned in real combat against deadlier foes than these Academy bullies. She caught Vextar's wrist mid-strike, twisted sharply, and sent him crashing into Glub. The Zalari's cybernetic arm swept toward her head, but Maya dropped low, swept its legs, and watched it topple with a crash of metal on deck plating. The entire confrontation lasted perhaps 15 seconds. When the dust settled, 3 of the Academy's most feared cadets lay groaning on the floor, and Maya stood untouched, not even breathing hard. The silence was deafening. Every alien in the cafeteria stared at her with expressions ranging from shock to fear. Maya realized with sinking dread that she'd just revealed far more than she'd intended. Self-defense, she said weakly to the assembled crowd, as if that could somehow explain what they'd just witnessed. Admiral Thorne's voice cut through the silence like a blade. Cadet Chen, my office, now. Maya turned to see the Admiral standing in the cafeteria entrance, his silver eyes blazing with a mixture of suspicion and something that might have been recognition. As Maya walked toward him, she heard whispers beginning behind her, alien voices speculating about what they'd just seen. The carefully constructed facade she'd built around her identity was crumbling, and she knew there was no going back. The Admiral led her through empty corridors to his office, neither of them speaking. Once inside, he activated privacy shields that would block any eavesdropping attempts. "Sit," he said, but this time his tone was different, more careful. Maya sat, her mind racing through possible explanations and cover stories. None of them would work now. What she'd just done in the cafeteria was beyond the capabilities of any normal cadet, even an exceptionally gifted one. Admiral Thorne pulled up a holographic display showing footage from the cafeteria security cameras. The fight played out in slow motion, every movement precise and economical. Maya watched herself move like liquid death, neutralizing 3 opponents with techniques that weren't taught at any academy. That, the Admiral said quietly, was not self-defense. That was combat expertise at a level I've only seen in special operations veterans with decades of experience. Maya remained silent. "I've been thinking about our earlier conversation," Admiral Thorne continued, "about anomalies attracting attention. There's something you should know, Cadet Chen. 3 days ago, I received a communication from Galactic Intelligence. They've been investigating unusual Academy applications, and your name came up." Maya's blood turned to ice, but she kept her expression neutral. "They're sending an agent to investigate your background, someone very good at uncovering secrets. They'll be here tomorrow." Admiral Thorne leaned back in his chair, studying Maya's face. "So, I'm going to ask you one more time, and I suggest you think very carefully about your answer. Who are you really?" "Maya Chen." The weight of the Admiral's stare was almost physical. Maya realized she was at a crossroads. She could continue the charade and hope to slip away before the intelligence agent arrived, or she could take a calculated risk. "I'm someone who wants to be left alone," she said finally. "That's not an answer." Maya looked at the holoframe on the Admiral's desk, showing his various commendations and service records. "You fought in the border wars," she observed. "Yes, commanded the 3rd Fleet during the siege of Proxima Station. I remember reading about that battle. Brilliant tactical victory against impossible odds. You used the enemy's supply lines against them, turned their own reinforcements into a trap." Admiral Thorne's eyes narrowed slightly. "That battle was classified at the highest levels. The true tactical details were never released to the public." Maya met his gaze steadily. No, they weren't. The silence stretched between them, heavy with implication. Finally, Admiral Thorne spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "Just who the hell are you?" Maya stood slowly, decision made. "Someone you really don't want Galactic Intelligence to find." She walked to the door, then paused. "Admiral, if you truly fought at Proxima, then you know what real warfare looks like. What happened in the cafeteria was just muscle memory. If I wanted those cadets dead, they would be." As Maya left the office, she could feel Admiral Thorne's eyes boring into her back. The game was almost up, but maybe, just maybe, she could stay ahead of it a little longer. Outside in the corridor, she pulled up her personal communicator and began composing a message to an encrypted address that didn't officially exist. 3 words. "Position compromised. Extracting." But as she was about to send it, she hesitated. Something about Admiral Thorne's manner, his careful questions and measured responses, made her think. What if there was another way? Maya deleted the message and walked back to her dormitory, her mind working furiously. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight she had time to plan. And if there was one thing Maya Chen excelled at, it was turning impossible situations to her advantage. After all, She hadn't survived this long by running away from every threat. Sometimes the best defense was hiding in plain sight, and sometimes the most dangerous place was exactly where your enemies expected you to be. Maya woke before dawn, a habit ingrained from years of staying one step ahead of those who hunted her. The Academy's artificial lighting was just beginning its morning cycle as she made her way to the gymnasium for early training. She wasn't surprised to find Admiral Thorne waiting for her, but the woman standing beside him made Maya's blood freeze. Agent Kira Voss of Galactic Intelligence stood with the predatory stillness of an apex predator, her augmented eyes scanning Maya with unsettling intensity. "Cadet Chen," Admiral Thorne said formally. "This is Agent Voss. She'd like to speak with you." Agent Voss was human, but heavily modified for her work. Her neural implants gleamed silver at her temples, and her eyes had been replaced with military-grade sensors capable of detecting micro-expressions, stress hormones, and a dozen other biological tells that made lying nearly impossible. "Let's walk," Voss said, her voice carrying the subtle accent of someone who'd spent too much time in deep space. "I find morning exercise helps clarify the mind." They walked through the Academy's corridors in silence until they reached an observation deck overlooking the training grounds. Below, early-rising cadets from various species worked through combat drills and tactical simulations. "Beautiful facility," Voss said conversationally. "I trained here myself 20 years ago. Back then, humans were still rarities in the galaxy. We had to prove ourselves every day." Maya remained silent, watching the cadets below. "You know what I find interesting about your file, Chen?" Voss continued. "It's perfect, too perfect. Farm girl from Earth's agricultural sector, exemplary test scores, no criminal record, no unusual associations. In my experience, people with perfectly clean backgrounds are usually hiding the dirtiest secrets." "Maybe I'm just boring," Maya said. Voss laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Boring people don't dismantle 3 trained fighters in 15 seconds using techniques that don't exist in any Academy manual." Below them, a group of Vorthon cadets was struggling with a tactical simulation. Maya watched as they repeatedly failed to breach a defended position, their approach too direct and predictable. "The flanking maneuver," Maya said quietly, more to herself than to Voss. "What was that?" Maya pointed at the simulation. "They're trying to go through the strong point instead of around it. If they split their force, send half around the eastern approach while the main group keeps the defenders' attention, they could take the position in minutes instead of hours." Voss studied the simulation with her enhanced vision. "That's actually a sophisticated analysis. That particular scenario was designed by Grand Marshal Zerion himself. The solution you just described is known only to a handful of senior strategists." Maya realized her mistake too late. She'd been analyzing the situation instinctively, drawing on knowledge she shouldn't possess. "Tell me, Chen," Voss said, her voice taking on a sharper edge. "Where exactly did a farm girl learn advanced military tactics?" "Strategy games," Maya repeated her earlier excuse. "I told Admiral Thorne the same thing." "Yes, you did. So I took the liberty of checking Earth's gaming networks. Interesting thing about strategy games, they keep detailed records of player performance. Your gaming alias, assuming you have one, should show a progression of skill over time." Maya's pulse quickened, but she kept her expression neutral. "I searched every major gaming platform for the past 10 years, Voss continued. "No record of anyone matching your profile achieving the level of strategic expertise you've demonstrated. In fact, no record of you playing any strategy games at all." They were interrupted by a commotion from the training grounds below. The Vorthon cadets had apparently decided to attempt Maya's suggested flanking maneuver, but they were executing it poorly. Their movements were too obvious, their timing off. "Idiots," Maya muttered, watching as the simulated defenders easily countered the predictable attack. The Eastern team moved too early and they're using standard formation spacing. Any decent commander would see that coming from orbit. How would you do it? Voss asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. Maya found herself explaining before she could stop herself. You don't split the force evenly. Send a single scout to identify the blind spots, then use micro teams of 2 or 3 to infiltrate from multiple directions. Keep the main force obvious and loud to maintain the deception, but have the real assault come from where they don't expect it. As if responding to her words, the simulation reset. Maya watched in growing alarm as her suggested tactics played out on the holographic display executed by the training computer to demonstrate optimal strategy. Fascinating, Voss said, making notes on a personal device. Those tactics are identical to ones used in the assault on Kepler Station during the Hegemony War, the operation that broke the siege and turned the tide of the entire conflict. Maya's heart stopped. Kepler Station. She remembered that battle vividly. The desperate fighting, the impossible odds, the brilliant tactical solution that had saved millions of lives. She remembered it because she'd been the one to devise and execute that exact strategy. Of course, Voss continued casually, that operation was classified at the highest levels. The tactical details were never released, even to military historians. The only people who know exactly how it was accomplished are the surviving members of the strike team that carried it out. Maya forced herself to breathe normally. Maybe I read about it in a declassified report. No, Voss said firmly, because there aren't any. The Kepler Station operation remains classified to this day. The only way you could know those tactics is if you were there. The silence stretched between them. Maya could feel Voss's enhanced senses analyzing every aspect of her physiological response, looking for the telltale signs of deception. Agent Voss, Maya said carefully, I think you might be overthinking this. Sometimes people are just naturally good at tactics. Natural talent doesn't explain knowledge of classified military operations, Voss replied. But you know what does? Being Ghost. The name hit Maya like a physical blow. Ghost. The code name she'd hoped never to hear again. The identity she'd buried along with so much else from her past. I don't know what you're talking about, Maya said, but her voice lacked conviction. Voss smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. Ghost. The phantom operative who appeared during the Hegemony War and systematically dismantled 3 separate galactic empires. Never seen, never identified, but responsible for some of the most brilliant military victories in recorded history. Maya remained silent, but her mind was racing. How much did Voss actually know? The interesting thing about Ghost, Voss continued, is that after the war ended, they simply vanished. No trace, no records, nothing. Almost as if they decided to become someone else entirely. Below them, more cadets had gathered to watch the tactical simulation replay. Maya's strategy was being dissected and analyzed by instructors who had no idea they were witnessing the work of the galaxy's most wanted former operative. Let me tell you a story, Voss said, leaning against the observation deck's railing. During the final phase of the Hegemony War, 3 major powers controlled most of the galaxy: the Krill Empire, the Vorthan Hegemony, and the Zalari Collective. Each one ruled through fear and oppression, conquering smaller species and enslaving entire worlds. Maya listened despite herself. This was history she'd lived through, battles she'd fought in the shadows. Then someone started hitting them where it hurt, Voss continued. Supply lines disrupted, communication networks compromised, key leadership mysteriously eliminated. Each empire began to fracture from within. Their own paranoia and brutality turned against them. The agent paused, studying Maya's face with those unsettling artificial eyes. The Krill were the first to fall. Someone infiltrated their primary command station and transmitted the locations of their secret prison worlds to the resistance movements. The uprising that followed tore their empire apart within weeks. Maya remembered that mission. She'd spent months planning the infiltration, learning Krill's security protocols and social hierarchies. The transmission had lasted only seconds, but it had freed billions of enslaved beings. The Vorthon hegemony lasted longer, Voss continued, until someone managed to turn their own client species against them. A series of perfectly coordinated rebellions across a dozen worlds, all happening simultaneously. The hegemony's forces were spread too thin to respond effectively. Another mission Maya remembered. The coordination had been the hardest part, establishing communication with resistance cells across vast distances, timing everything perfectly. She'd barely escaped when the Vorthon counterintelligence finally traced the coordination back to her. "And the Zalari Collective?" Maya asked, despite knowing she shouldn't engage. Voss's smile widened. "The most interesting case of all. Someone hacked into their collective consciousness network and introduced a philosophical virus, a single idea that spread through their hive mind and convinced them that their way of life was fundamentally wrong. They disbanded voluntarily and freed all their subjects." That had been Maya's masterpiece. Not violence or military action, but a careful manipulation of the Zalari's own psychological vulnerabilities. She'd spent years studying their collective consciousness, learning how ideas propagated through their network. The philosophical virus had been elegant in its simplicity. A logical proof that true collective consciousness required voluntary participation, not forced assimilation. 3 empires, Voss said. Each one seemingly invincible, each one brought down by a single individual operating in the shadows. The galaxy called this person Ghost, because they were never seen, never caught, never even properly identified. But someone that good doesn't just disappear. They reinvent themselves. Maya could feel the walls closing in. Voss clearly knew far more than she was saying, and Maya's careful disguise was crumbling with every word. "Why are you telling me this?" Maya asked. "Because Ghost saved the galaxy," Voss said simply. "Billions of beings owe their freedom to someone who asked for nothing in return and then vanished into obscurity. And because I think I've found them." The 2 women stared at each other in silence. Maya could see her own reflection in Voss's artificial eyes, and she wondered what the agent's sensors were telling her about Maya's stress levels and emotional state. "Even if your theory were correct," Maya said carefully, "what would you want with someone like that?" "To offer them a job," Voss said. "The galaxy is facing new threats. The Void Seekers are pushing in from the Rim worlds, and their technology is unlike anything we've ever encountered. We need someone who thinks outside conventional tactical frameworks." Maya felt a chill. She'd heard whispers about the Void Seekers during her time at the Academy. Strange reports from the outer colonies, ships disappearing, entire systems going dark. "And if this hypothetical person wanted to remain retired?" Maya asked. "Then I'd respect that choice," Voss said. "But I'd also point out that retirement is a luxury that Ghost might not be able to afford much longer." Before Maya could ask what she meant, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Emergency lights bathed the corridors in red, and automated announcements echoed from every speaker. "All personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill. Unknown vessels approaching the Academy. All cadets report to designated safety areas immediately." Through the observation deck's transparasteel windows, Maya could see ships materializing out of hyperspace. Sleek, black vessels unlike any design in the galactic databases. Their hulls seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, giving them an otherworldly appearance. "Void Seekers," Voss said grimly. "They've never attacked a major installation before?" Maya watched as the Academy's defensive systems came online, energy shields flickering to life around the station. But even as she watched, she could see the tactical situation developing. The attacking ships moved with perfect coordination, their approach vectors calculated to exploit every weakness in the Academy's defenses. "The shield generators," Maya said, her tactical mind automatically analyzing the situation. "They're targeting the primary generators. If they take those out, the station's defenses will collapse." "The Academy's military staff are among the best in the galaxy," Voss said. "They'll handle it." But Maya could see what the Academy's commanders couldn't. The Void Seekers' attack wasn't just about destroying the station. It was about testing the galaxy's defenses, probing for weaknesses. The way they moved, the precise timing of their assault, it all spoke of intelligence gathering rather than simple destruction. "They're not trying to destroy the Academy," Maya realized. "They're studying us, learning our tactics and capabilities." As if to confirm her analysis, the attacking ships suddenly broke off their assault just as the Academy's reinforcements arrived. They vanished back into hyperspace as quickly as they'd appeared, leaving behind only wreckage from the few defenders they'd destroyed. "Interesting," Voss said, watching the last enemy ship disappear. "That was very much like something Ghost might have done during the war. Hit hard, gather intelligence, then withdraw before the enemy can mount an effective response." Maya felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's climate control. "You think the Void Seekers learned their tactics by studying Ghost's operations?" "I think someone taught them very well," Voss said. "Someone who understands exactly how Ghost operated." The implications were staggering. Maya's own tactics, perfected through years of shadow warfare against the galaxy's most powerful empires, were being turned against the very people she'd fought to free. "Agent Voss," Maya said quietly, "I think we need to have a much longer conversation." "I was hoping you'd say that," Voss replied. "But not here. Too many ears, too many eyes. Meet me in Docking Bay 7 at midnight. And Chen, come alone." As Voss walked away, Maya remained on the observation deck, staring out at the stars where the Void Seekers had vanished. Somewhere out there, someone was using her own methods against the galaxy she'd once saved. The game had changed, and Maya Chen was about to discover that even ghosts couldn't stay buried forever. Docking Bay 7 was empty except for maintenance drones when Maya arrived at midnight. Agent Voss materialized from the shadows near a shuttlecraft, her movements silent and precise. "Punctual," Voss observed. Ghost was always known for that. "Stop calling me that," Maya said. "That person is dead." "Is she?" Voss gestured to the shuttle. "Get in. We're taking a little trip." Maya hesitated. Getting into a galactic intelligence shuttle was effectively surrendering any chance of maintaining her cover. But after the Void Seeker attack, she realized her retirement might already be over. The shuttle's interior was sparse and functional, designed for clandestine operations rather than comfort. Voss took the pilot's seat while Maya strapped herself in. They lifted off in silence, leaving the Academy's lights behind as they headed into deep space. "Where are we going?" Maya asked. "Sector 7G, Voss replied. "The Meridian Colony, or what's left of it." Maya's blood chilled. Meridian had been one of the Outer Rim's most successful farming colonies, home to over 2 million beings from a dozen different species. The report said it had gone dark 3 weeks ago. The journey took 6 hours at maximum hyperspace velocity. When they finally dropped back into normal space, Maya stared in horror at what remained of the Meridian system. The colony's orbital platforms were twisted metal wreckage, and the planet itself was shrouded in an unnatural darkness that seemed to swallow light. "This is what the Void Seekers leave behind," Voss said grimly. "Not just destruction, but something worse. Watch." She activated the shuttle's sensors and directed them toward the planet. The readings were impossible. The world's mass was unchanged, but its gravitational field was fluctuating wildly. Energy patterns danced across the surface in configurations that hurt to look at. The planet is still there, Voss explained, but reality itself has been altered. Our science teams call it conceptual restructuring. The Void Seekers don't just conquer territory, they rewrite the fundamental laws of physics in the areas they control. Maya studied the sensor readings, her tactical mind automatically analyzing the threat. How many colonies? 17 so far, all outer rim systems. They're working their way inward, learning and adapting with each attack. The Academy raid wasn't random. They were studying our response times and defensive capabilities. And you think someone trained them, Maya said. Voss pulled up a holographic display showing tactical analyses from each Void Seeker attack. Look at the patterns, the precise timing, the exploitation of defensive weaknesses, the hit-and-run tactics. It's all there. Every technique that made Ghost so effective during the war. Maya examined the data, and her worst fears were confirmed. The Void Seekers weren't just using similar tactics, they were using her exact methodologies, refined and perfected for their alien technology. Someone who fought against the empires, Maya said slowly, someone who learned from Ghost's operations, is now teaching the Void Seekers how to defeat us. That's our theory, which is why we need Ghost back. You're the only one who understands these tactics well enough to counter them. Maya was quiet for a long moment, staring at the tortured remains of Meridian Colony. Millions of innocent beings had died here, their reality literally rewritten by an enemy that used her own techniques against them. Tell me about the Void Seekers, she said finally. Voss activated another display. They appeared from beyond the galactic rim 18 months ago. No warning, no communication, just sudden attacks on isolated systems. Their technology is unlike anything we've encountered. It seems to manipulate space-time itself. The display showed fragmentary images captured during attacks. The Void Seeker ships were organic-looking things that seemed to phase in and out of normal space. Their weapons didn't just destroy matter. They unraveled it at a quantum level. We've never captured one alive, Voss continued. When their ships are destroyed, they just cease to exist. No wreckage, no biological remains, nothing. It's as if they were never there. Maya studied the tactical data, patterns emerging in her mind. They're testing us. Each attack is an experiment, learning our capabilities and limitations. This isn't a war. It's a preparation phase. Preparation for what? The real invasion. When they've learned everything they need, they'll strike at the core worlds. And by then, they'll know exactly how to counter every defense we have. Voss nodded grimly. The Galactic Council is in denial. They think this is a border skirmish that can be contained. They don't understand the scope of the threat. Maya pulled up the star charts, studying the pattern of attacks. Show me the next likely targets. Voss highlighted several systems. Our analysts predict they'll hit one of these colonies within the next week. Maya shook her head. No, they're done with isolated targets. Look at the progression. They've been moving steadily inward, but always staying just outside our main defense perimeter. The next attack will be here. She indicated a system much closer to the galactic core. New Geneva. It's heavily defended, but still technically an outer system. Perfect for testing how we respond to attacks on strategic targets. That's impossible, Voss protested. New Geneva has 3 battlecruisers and a full defense grid. The Void Seekers have never attacked anything that heavily fortified. They have now, Maya said with certainty. Because someone who understands my tactics also understands that you never attack what your enemy expects you to attack. You hit what they can't afford to lose. As if summoned by her words, emergency alerts began flooding the shuttle's communication system. reports of massive energy signatures appearing in the New Geneva system. Distress calls from the orbital defense platforms. How did you know? Voss demanded. Maya was already calculating hyperspace routes. Because I designed the strategic progression they're following. Maximum intelligence gathering with minimum risk exposure. The question is, who taught it to them? She thought back through her years of shadow warfare, trying to remember who might have been close enough to learn her methods. The possibilities were terrifyingly few. There's only one person who could know my tactics that intimately, Maya said quietly. Someone who worked with me during the final phase of the war. Ghost worked alone, Voss said. Intelligence reports were very clear on that. Intelligence reports were wrong. There was one other person involved in the deepest operations. My handler. The one who provided intelligence and logistical support. Codename Wraith. Maya's hands were steady as she took control of the shuttle's navigation system. But inside, she was reeling. Wraith had been the closest thing to a friend she'd had during those dark years. Someone she'd trusted completely. If Wraith has gone over to the Void Seekers, Maya continued, then they know everything. Every tactic, every strategy, every psychological profile of our leadership. We're not just fighting an alien invasion, we're fighting ourselves. The shuttle jumped to hyperspace, racing toward New Geneva. During the journey, Maya found herself opening mental files she'd kept locked for years. Memories of covert operations, shadow wars, and the careful dismantling of galactic empires. Tell me about the empires, Voss said quietly. Tell me what really happened. Maya stared out at the swirling colors of hyperspace. The galaxy was dying. 3 massive powers crushing everything beneath them, turning entire species into slaves or livestock. Someone had to act. Why you? Earth was barely space-capable at the time. Because humans think differently, Maya said. The major species had been fighting the same wars the same way for millennia. They couldn't see beyond their established patterns, but humans were chaos agents. We don't follow the rules because we barely understand them. She pulled up historical records from the war years. The Krill Empire controlled territory through fear. Their entire power structure was based on the belief that resistance was futile. So I showed their subjects that resistance was not only possible, but inevitable. The First Empire had been the hardest to bring down, Maya remembered. She'd spent months learning Krill psychology, understanding how their hierarchical society functioned. The key had been the prison worlds. Once their locations were revealed, the uprising had been unstoppable. The Vorthon hegemony was different, Maya continued. They ruled through client species, using divide-and-conquer tactics. So I taught their subjects to unify. Coordinated rebellion across dozens of worlds, all striking simultaneously. And the Zalari Collective? Maya smiled grimly. They were the most dangerous because they truly believed their way was right. Forced assimilation into a collective consciousness. All for the greater good. The only way to defeat them was to prove them wrong using their own philosophy. The philosophical virus, Voss said with something approaching awe. You convinced an entire species that their fundamental beliefs were incorrect. I showed them that true unity comes from choice, not compulsion. Once that idea took hold in their collective consciousness, it spread like wildfire. They disbanded voluntarily because they realized their empire was built on a lie. They dropped out of hyperspace near New Geneva to find a battle in progress. The system's 3 battlecruisers were engaging a single Void Seeker vessel, but the alien ship was systematically dismantling their formations using tactics Maya recognized as her own. They're using the Kepler station maneuver, Maya breathed, watching as the Void Seeker ship lured the defenders into overextending their positions, but modified for their phase shift capabilities. The largest battlecruiser, the GSV Intrepid, was already showing severe damage. Its shields flickered as reality-warping weapons tore at its hull. We have to help them, Voss said, moving toward the communications console. No, Maya said sharply. Any conventional attack will just give them more data to analyze. We need to do something they don't expect. She studied the battle through the shuttle's sensors, her mind working through possibilities. The Void Seeker ship was powerful, but it was following predicted patterns. That meant Wraith was probably directing the attack remotely, using Maya's own tactical manual against the defenders. There, Maya said, pointing to a weak point in the alien ship's maneuvering pattern. It's compensating for the phase shift technology by following predictable evasion routes. If we can get close enough. This shuttle doesn't have weapons capable of damaging that ship, Voss protested. We don't need weapons, Maya said, taking manual control of the shuttle. We need to be unpredictable. She dove the shuttle directly into the battle zone, ignoring Voss's protests and the proximity alarms. The Void Seeker ship detected their approach and began evasive maneuvers, but Maya had anticipated its movement pattern. Instead of attacking, she broadcast a signal on the frequency she'd once used to communicate with Wraith during covert operations. A simple message. "Hello, old friend." The effect was immediate. The Void Seeker ship hesitated for just a moment, its attack pattern faltering. That moment was enough for the surviving battle cruisers to land several direct hits. "Wraith, I know you're listening," Maya broadcast. "This isn't you. These things, whatever they've done to you, whatever they've promised, it's not worth betraying everything we fought for." The alien ship turned toward their shuttle, and Maya could feel the weight of attention focusing on them. When the response came, it was in a voice she remembered, distorted by alien technology but unmistakably familiar. "Maya, I wondered when you'd emerge from hiding. End this, Wraith. These colonies, these people, they're innocent. They're the ones we fought to protect." "Protect?" The voice carried bitter laughter. "Look around you, Maya. Look at what our victory accomplished. The empires are gone, but what replaced them? Chaos, war, suffering on an even greater scale." On the shuttle's display, Maya could see the battle continuing around them. The remaining defenders were regrouping, but they were badly outmatched. "The galaxy needed order," Wraith continued. "The Void Seekers offer that. Perfect unity, perfect peace, no more war, no more suffering." "No more freedom," Maya replied. "You've seen what they do to the worlds they conquer. That's not peace, it's extinction." "Evolution," Wraith corrected. "Transcendence beyond the limitations of individual existence." Maya recognized the rhetoric. She'd heard similar words from the Zalari Collective before she'd brought them down. The promise of unity through the elimination of choice. "I won't let you do this," Maya said. "You can't stop us. I know every tactic you might use because I helped you develop them. The galaxy will unite under the Void Seekers, or it will burn." The alien ship began charging its reality-warping weapons, targeting not just the shuttle, but the planet below. Maya realized with horror that New Geneva was about to join the list of worlds consumed by unnatural darkness. "You're wrong," Maya said, initiating a desperate gambit. "You don't know every tactic I might use, because the most important one I never told you." She cut the communication and turned to Voss. "Contact the Academy. Tell them to broadcast the following message on all emergency frequencies." "What message?" Maya began dictating a series of codes and tactical instructions, drawing on knowledge she'd kept locked away for years, not just her own techniques, but the combined tactical wisdom of every empire she'd ever fought. "You're giving away military secrets," Voss protested. "I'm sharing them," Maya corrected. "With everyone, every ship in the galaxy, every colony defense force, every resistance cell. The Void Seeker's advantage comes from fighting predictable opponents using known tactics. So let's become unpredictable." As the broadcast went out across the galaxy, Maya watched the immediate effect on the battle around New Geneva. Suddenly, the defenders weren't following standard fleet engagement protocols. Each ship began using different tactics, creating a chaotic but effective swarm that the Void Seeker vessel couldn't predict or counter. "Impossible," came Wraith's voice over the communication channel. "This will only lead to more chaos, more destruction." "Maybe," Maya admitted, watching as the alien ship began to retreat under the unpredictable assault. "But it will be our chaos, our choice. And that's what makes us human." The Void Seeker ship vanished into its phase shift dimension, but not before broadcasting one final message. "This isn't over, Maya. The unity will come, whether you help or not." As the immediate battle ended, Maya found herself thinking about the broader war to come. The galaxy now had her complete tactical knowledge, but the Void Seekers would adapt and evolve. The real fight was just beginning. "So," Voss said, as they watched the rescue operations begin around New Geneva, "Ghost is officially out of retirement?" Maya looked out at the stars, thinking about the billions of beings who depended on the freedom she'd once helped win. The quiet life she'd built for herself was over, but perhaps it was time. "Maya Chen was a farm girl who wanted to be left alone," she said quietly. "But the galaxy needs something more dangerous than that." She turned from the viewport. Decision made. "Contact the Galactic Council. Tell them Ghost has a war to win." The shuttle turned back toward the galactic core, carrying with it the promise that humanity's greatest shadow warrior was returning to the fight. And this time, she wouldn't be working alone. The entire galaxy would become an army of ghosts, each one fighting in their own way, united not by force, but by choice. The Void Seekers had made one critical error in their calculations. They had studied Ghost's tactics perfectly, but they had never truly understood the human spirit that created them. And that, Maya realized with grim satisfaction, would be their downfall. In the depths of space, ancient empires had fallen to a single human who refused to accept that freedom was impossible. Now a new threat had emerged, promising unity through extinction. But they would learn, as others had before them, that humanity's greatest strength was not in following rules, but in breaking them. The real war was about to begin, and for the first time in years, Maya Chen was exactly where she belonged, in the shadows, fighting for the light.